Next time you're at a gas station, pumping $60 worth of liquid into your car, here's something to consider. That gallon of liquid started its life in a barrel of crude oil, along with jet fuel, plastic bags, asphalt for roads, and about 15 other things you use every day. Your car is basically running on one piece of a chemical magic trick that transforms black liquid into the backbone of modern life. So let's start with what actually comes out of the ground. When an oil company drills a well, they're not extracting gasoline. They're pulling up crude oil, which is more like nature's Swiss Army knife. According to the Energy Information Administration, a single 42-gallon barrel of crude gets transformed into about 45 gallons of different products. Yes, you heard that right. More comes out than goes in, like some kind of petroleum popcorn situation. Here's where it gets interesting. That 42-gallon barrel becomes roughly 19.6 gallons of gasoline. That's less than half. The rest becomes 12.5 gallons of diesel and heating oil, 4.4 gallons of jet fuel, and then a bunch of stuff you probably never think about. Petroleum coke, propane, asphalt, lubricants, and the raw materials for plastics. Your gas tank is getting the star of the show, but it's sharing the stage with your driveway, your garbage bags, and the fuel that got your vacation flight off the ground. But wait, there's more. Literally, when that oil comes up, it brings a friend, natural gas. In big oil-producing regions like Texas's Permian Basin, wells produce about 18.2 billion cubic feet of this associated gas every single day. That gas carries its own chemical treasure chest: ethane that becomes plastic bottles, propane that heats homes and gets exported around the world, and butane that fills your lighter. It's like oil wells are running a very profitable side hustle. Now here's where things get complicated, and this is our first "wait, really?" moment. Not all crude oil is created equal, and that matters way more than you might think. Oil companies classify crude on two scales: how heavy it is, they call this API gravity, and how much sulfur it contains. Light, sweet crude with low sulfur is like the premium ingredient that easily becomes gasoline and diesel. Heavy, sour crude with lots of sulfur, that's the tough customer that needs special equipment and more processing. This is why the global oil market revolves around three specific types of crude that set prices for everything else. There's West Texas Intermediate, light and sweet, priced in Cushing, Oklahoma, which is basically the pipeline crossroads of America. There's Brent, a blend of North Sea oils that prices about 2/3 of all traded crude worldwide. And there's Dubai/Oman, the heavier, more sour benchmark that sets prices across Asia. These three crude oils are like the reference points that determine what you pay at the pump, which brings us to the big reveal. Your gas price isn't really set by your corner station, or even by American oil companies. It's set by a global market where traders in Houston, Geneva, and Singapore are buying and selling contracts for oil that might not even exist yet. Every day, about 1 million contracts for West Texas Intermediate change hands on the New York Mercantile Exchange, each contract representing 1,000 barrels of oil. It's the most liquid commodity market in the world, and it's essentially a massive, real-time auction that determines what you'll pay next Tuesday. So how does that global crude price become the number on your gas station sign? Every gallon of gasoline, anywhere in the world, is built from exactly 4 ingredients. The Energy Information Administration breaks it down like this. Crude oil cost, usually about half the price. Refining costs and profits, turning that crude into gasoline. Distribution and marketing, getting it from the refinery to your local station. And taxes, federal, state, and local. That's it. 4 ingredients, combined differently around the world, but always the same 4 ingredients. In America, using 2023 data when gas averaged $3.52 per gallon, here's what your gallon looked like. 52.6% crude oil, 18.7% refining, 14.3% distribution, and 14.4% taxes. But here's something that might surprise you. The federal gas tax hasn't changed since October 1st, 1993. It's still 18.4 cents per gallon, which means inflation has cut its purchasing power by about 73%. Meanwhile, state taxes create a wild range across the country. State taxes range from 9 cents in Alaska to over 70 cents in California, which helps explain why filling up feels so different depending on where you are. California isn't just expensive because of taxes, it's a fuel island that must be supplied by its own refineries, uses special reformulated gasoline that almost no out-of-state refinery can produce, California also layers on cap and trade costs and low-carbon fuel standards that can add another 40 cents per gallon. Now let's follow that gallon from the well to your tank and see who gets paid along the way. First, there are the oil producers. The big companies like ExxonMobil and Chevron, plus national oil companies like Saudi Aramco, and thousands of independent drillers working places like Texas and North Dakota. The U.S. alone produced a record 13.6 million barrels per day in 2025, roughly half from the Permian Basin. Then come the traders, refiners, and an entire logistics army you never see. Here's something that might shock you. Gas stations make almost no money on gasoline. NACS, the convenience store trade group, reports that fuel generates about 2/3 of station revenue but under 40% of profit. Typical gross margins are 30 to 40 cents per gallon, but after operating costs, net margins often drop to just 5 to 15 cents. Credit card fees alone eat about 8.4 cents per gallon at $3.50 gas. Station owners make their real money selling you coffee, soda, and hot food. Which brings us to why gas costs so wildly different amounts around the world. In April 2026, during a Middle East crisis that spiked oil prices, you could pay 11 cents per gallon in Venezuela, about $2.35 in Saudi Arabia, $4.09 in the United States, or over $10 in the Netherlands. The difference isn't the oil, it's policy. European countries layer on taxes that represent over half the pump price. Oil-producing countries subsidize fuel as a social contract. But there's one more player in this game that can move prices faster than anything else. OPEC and its extended family, OPEC+. This group of countries controls about 47% of world oil production, and when they meet to decide production levels, they're essentially setting a floor and ceiling for global oil prices. Saudi Arabia alone keeps about 3 million barrels per day of spare capacity, the world's shock absorber. When geopolitical tensions spike, like the ongoing Iran conflict that messes up the Strait of Hormuz, these production and shipping decisions can send your local gas price up $1 in 6 weeks. The AAA national average hit $4.093 per gallon on April 16, 2026, up $1.11 from February 26. WTI crude jumped to the low $90s, Brent to the mid-$90s, after briefly spiking above $125 when the crisis began. So the next time you're standing at that pump, watching the dollars tick by, remember this: you're not just buying gasoline. You're buying the end product of a global industrial ballet that involves geological surveys in Texas, tanker routes through the Strait of Hormuz, refinery capacity decisions in Houston, pipeline maintenance in Oklahoma, and tax policy in your state capital. Your corner gas station is less like a simple retailer and more like the final stop in the most complex supply chain humans have ever created. The price at the pump is a thermometer, not a thermostat, measuring the temperature of a global system that's always in motion, always reacting, and always reminding us that what happens in a Middle Eastern strait can change what you pay to get to work tomorrow.